Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we are going to talk about your coolant system. We'll start with antifreeze. Antifreeze is the liquid that's cycled through the engine and the radiator that keeps the engine cool. It's also called coolant for this reason. I will be referring to it as both coolant and antifreeze just to be more confusing. Antifreeze is made up 40 to 60% of water, and water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. To prevent antifreeze from freezing at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, it has a host of chemicals in it that lowers the freezing point to minus 35 degrees Fahrenheit or so. It would be considerably bad if the fluid inside of your engine froze overnight while you were sleeping. Normal operating temperature for a vehicle is somewhere between 195 degrees and 205 degrees. It can be normal for an engine to run 20 to 25 degrees hotter than that due to the outside temperature and stress on the engine and other factors. To combat boiling in the cooling system, antifreeze has some chemicals in it that will raise the boiling point a little bit past 212, but the coolant system is also pressurized. Coolant systems are designed to hold between roughly 13 and 20 pounds of pressure. For every 1 pound of pressure increase, that increases the boiling point by 3 degrees, which means the boiling point of the coolant is increased by 39 to 60 degrees. Having pockets of air in the coolant system is bad. Don't do that. Your radiator cap is what controls how much pressure is in the coolant system at any given time. When the system reaches beyond the pressure the cap is capable of holding, the cap opens a valve and allows coolant to travel into the overflow. When the system cools down and the pressure goes down, coolant is drawn back through the overflow back into the coolant system. Your coolant has two general places it wants to be. It either wants to be in the radiator getting cooled, or it wants to be in the engine doing the cooling. The radiator is a rectangular-shaped reservoir in the front of your vehicle. The radiator has a bunch of metal pipes with a bunch of metal flanges on them that dissipates heat while the coolant fan blows large volumes of air over them. They are designed this way so that the heat transfer can happen quickly. While in the engine, the coolant travels through a series of caverns called the water jacket. The water jacket is inside the head or heads. It is inside the block, and the coolant travels between the block and the head without getting into the cylinders or leaking out onto the ground because of the head gasket that we mentioned in a previous video. Between the water jacket and the radiator, there is a thermostat. There are electrical thermostats and mechanical thermostats. They both work a bit differently, but the end result is the same. The thermostat controls the engine temperature. It does this by staying closed until the coolant in the water jacket reaches a certain temperature. Once that temperature is reached, the thermostat starts to open. When open, coolant is pumped from the water jacket through the thermostat housing, through a hose into the radiator. Once all of the hot coolant has been pumped out of the engine into the radiator and the cool coolant is pumped from the radiator to the engine, the thermostat closes and the engine starts to heat the coolant up again till it gets back to normal operating temperature. This happens over and over and over again while you're driving. If you have a sensitive temperature sending unit, you can actually watch the gauge in your car go up and down a little bit when this happens. From the moment you start your car till the point in time you shut it down, your engine's water pump is constantly spinning and constantly trying to pump coolant around. There are a few types of fans out there that we'll talk briefly about. There are mechanical fans, electric fans, and hydraulic fans. Electric fans are controlled by a module, and the temperature sending unit sends information to the module that allows the module to tell the fan to turn on and off and what speed to turn. Mechanical fans employ a clutch system, which is actually just a giant spring that gets larger or smaller as the temperature of the engine block increases and decreases. When that spring gets stressed, it makes a better connection with the gears inside the fan and causes the fan to turn faster. When the engine cools down a little bit, that spring gets a little bit more relaxed and the fan blades turn slower. But the fan blades always turn in a mechanical fan. Hydraulic fans are very complicated and we're not going to get into them too much here. but they use fluid from the power steering system and a temperature sensor and a sensor on the fan itself to control a solenoid which opens and closes, allowing more or less pressure into the fan motor to allow it to turn. The last part of the coolant system we'll talk about are auxiliary coolant pumps. These pumps don't work when your car is running. Instead, when you shut the car off and walk away, these pumps will turn on and slowly circulate coolant around between the engine and the radiator, trying to even out the temperature of the fluid across both platforms. This is important in sportier cars because the engine's already going to be a little bit hotter than normal sedans. Plus, once you shut your engine down, coolant isn't circulating anymore, and the engine block and the heads continuously get a little hotter and hotter, and that's not good for the engines. So auxiliary coolant pumps solve this problem by staying on after your car is shut down to pump some extra coolant around until everything is stabilized. Well, that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed listening to me mumble about this nonsense for a few minutes. If you have any questions, reach out. I'm happy to help. Have a good day. Take care.